Hi, welcome to Republican Roundtable. I'm Jennifer Zielinski, your guest host for tonight, and today we are diving into an issue that has been affecting Minneapolis for quite some time. We just came out of the 2022 elections, and we are gearing up for the 2024 elections. And as a Republican Party, we have to build a foundation and address issues that are affecting our cities. And tonight we have a friend of the show and an activist in Minneapolis, Shawn Holster. Shawn, welcome back to the show.
Great to see you again, Jennifer.
Great to see you too. How have you been doing?
Fantastic. Resting.
Resting.
Yeah.
Especially after the
Some
election.
time off. Yeah, enjoyed Thanksgiving, getting ready for Christmas. Just not thinking politics all that much as during a campaign.
As much. But another issue has really caught your attention and really, you've been really focusing on it. What is that?
I have. Well, it's been a job for the last 3.5 years or so. But I think everybody's kind of noticed this issue of homeless camps in Minneapolis and how it's being handled or not being handled. And yeah, I'm going to notice that and look at what's going on there because, yeah, you're dealing with a lot of substance abuse, mental illness. You're dealing with a lot of what I call clients for the last few years. And very familiar with the population, what the services are, what the services aren't, what the city is doing, what the city isn't doing, and what we can do as a party, as conservatives, as individuals, to maybe start making a dent in this because I don't see anything really out of what's been already happening coming out of the city of Minneapolis. So
It's been an ongoing issue as somebody who has lived in Minneapolis, has worked there. But Shawn, taking a step back, you have been on this show before, but if you could just tell us about yourself and why this has caught your attention more and, your background on this.
Well, in the last year, I have found myself more in the environment outside of treatment centers, more in homeless shelters, in transitional housing, on the street, working with these individuals and their needs and navigating systems and being somewhat of an ear, a peer specialist. You're a little bit of everything. You are performing, you're wearing a number of hats. Maybe not necessarily all of them all that well, but you have to be ready for anything. You're kind of a sponsor. You're kind of a mentor. The first time somebody called me that, I was a little taken aback. I'm like, But yeah, that's part of the job.
You weren't sure if you were ready for that responsibility
yet.
Yeah,
but then, I guess this is what I signed up for now, isn't it? Be that example of taking oneself out of darkness. And, after being in that environment long enough, taking notes, it's like I've identified some things that I think are lacking, but I don't know if systems can necessarily do that. That's where the private sector comes in as individuals or groups of individuals or whatever else. Some call it charity, some call it service. I prefer to call it service and do what I can do.
And your background is in mental health and addiction, something that really is prevalent in a lot of these encampments that we are seeing.
Right, like as I mentioned, peer specialist, it's a certification. I am not a clinician by any stretch of the imagination, but I work directly with that population. I listen to these guys. I've said it before, I'll say it again, it's not theory, it's practice. And in that role, there are levels of trust that develop that don't develop with other roles. That's no big secret. And other things that I've seen within that field, I am not comfortable with. I feel it necessary to step away from having a paid position in that field, and this is service for me at this point.
And now, do you see City Council doing anything about these encampments? I know we're primarily focusing on the Minneapolis ones today. They've obviously grown throughout the Twin Cities, but do you see the Minneapolis City Council handling any of this?
I know there's a working group going on. I know there's not any conservatives at the table in that working group. To my knowledge, I speak frequently with Nancy Ford.
Okay.
That, to my knowledge, she's running again. She ran last time for Ward 12 City Council, and she said it's okay if I spread rumors. Put it to you that way. And she is very interested in that as well. And she has been speaking with Jason Chavez in Ward 9. And from her description of what they're talking about, I think he's got some good ideas. Yeah, as a conservative, okay, yeah, from what I hear of what they're talking about, okay, we have to, I guess what's on the table is we have to create a designated area where we are not shuffling this population around with 10 minutes notice and bobcats. And I agree, that's inhumane.
That seems to be the solution right now. And unfortunately, when you have a city that already is almost at war with its police department, unfortunately, that's what's happening.
Well, and it becomes a pass the buck or more pass the broom kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, okay, are the tents on state property? Are they on county property? Are they on city property? Okay, how long is it going to sit there? Who wants the dustpan? I don't want the broom. And it just doesn't go anywhere. Right? And then all of a sudden, disruption. It does no good for anyone. And we also have to recognize that there is a portion of this population that simply refuses services. This portion of what do you do that you have either by choice through refusal of services or through regulation, the unhousable. Good luck if you have an arson or criminal sexual assault in your background. Good luck finding housing.
There's
through any sort of program.
Literally no place, yeah.
There's that much of a market in a market that doesn't exist. It's what do you do with that population? What do you do with the population where the system can't handle them because you cannot, without a crime, forcibly detain this population, and well, until a crime happens, at some point they're in the system. You can't keep them in the system. You can't house. For whatever reason, what do you then do? You start looking at violating civil rights. I said this during the campaign. We are at this point, right? Do we be as both lazy and disruptive as possible? Or do we find some sort of gray zone here to at least triage the situation? Because will it be perfect? No. Will people die? Yeah, there are already people dying, right? And let's not make any pretense about that. Any sort of stab at perfection is going to fail. You are not going to find perfection. And what do we do now? So, yeah, creating some sort of gray area. There has to be a very fine line, or a very distinct line, I should say, drawn between enabling and assistance. Where is that? I don't know. I don't think anybody knows. You are talking about creating a tent city, a Hooverville, a shanty town. What else you got?
And at this point, we don't. It's something that might be able to help with the situation.
In my mind, okay, let's turn it into a partnership with the Parks Department. They already have an independent police force. I'm sure there is some land that could be identified that could be used for these purposes. One safe, well, not safe, but one encampment north, one encampment south, right?
And just something where you set those areas aside.
Some sort of mechanism of staffing of some sort. Staff it like a fire department, right? It's emergency services of some degree. some sort of emergency communication, some sort of presence, preferably.
Obviously, safety is paramount, something we have not seen in these encampments.
Because what are we dealing with? We are talking about very physical conditions. You're talking about disease,
Yep.
hepatitis, other communicable diseases. You are talking about just general hygiene. You're talking about fire hazard.
Yes.
Okay, an area, okay, you can camp. Okay, let's establish some of the most basic parameters. No two tents within 15 feet. Okay, what if one catches on fire? Someone on site to say, oh, hey, there's a fire, we can deploy our staff. I don't know, involve AmeriCorps, involve the state. I am sure there is somewhere we could find some state funding for this.
We have these social services available, let's get them involved. But Shawn, one thing is, why is this now a Republican issue? Why should our Republican Party take note of this and start to work to solve it?
Well, because our alternative is to go with the model that we have right now, which is I think very much a politically driven model, maybe not politically driven, but it is the socialist model, right? Of, okay, you start turning humans into units to be processed through services, right? That's it. Yeah. Oh, you think that's fantastic? Walk into any one of these environments. Walk into a halfway house. Walk into county-funded, state-funded. It's not a wonderland. There is very little human interaction, right? They're a number. They're a case number, right? Now you got me all wound up, and I've lost track. Where were we?
Well, we're talking about, why is this a Republican issue?
It is a Republican issue because what the Democrats are doing, the progressive Democrat socialist methodology, and it is okay to call them the Democratic Socialist methodology because
taking it to the extreme.
Well, no, they self-identify. This is the Democrat Socialist of America wing of the DFL. There is a list of candidates who identify as that. That's a poor model. We have a different model. We are supposed to be charitable. We are supposed to be compassionate. We are supposed to extend a hand, not enable, but when there is a need identified, private charity is where that needs to happen because that contains the element of humanity. This is, yes, I'm drifting off into the spiritual here, but that is the difference in the approaches to what is supposed to be the benevolent treatment of a shared problem. And this is a shared problem. We have this problem. I don't care how these individuals got there. There they are. Right? What do we do now?
And let's take, the human approach to it, to solving it. These are individuals who need help.
Yes.
Is there an underlying issue you have seen with these homeless encampments, or is there something that needs to be addressed along those ends, or is it about solving what we're seeing right now?
Specifically?
Is there an underlying issue like addiction?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I talk about the unhoused, and there are plenty of others who will say it. Those who remain in the camps after any number of the refusal of service, they are there because they want to use, because there are parameters in a halfway house. There are parameters in a shelter. You have what's called ARC now, and it is, I believe, 5 different agencies. It's Catholic Charities, Simpson Housing, 3 others. Okay. Off the top of my head, I'm not thinking of the other 3 right now. But it is basically an application or a shared database where if you've been assaultive with staff in one, there's a red flag there. I've had issues with a couple individuals that, okay, well, we can't get you into there because, well, you happen to have this little issue now, don't you?
Yes. And unfortunately, at that point, when you're using one of those services, you're probably at the kind of your last chance there. So,
Or coming out of.
Yes.
the Department of Corrections,
Yes.
or Bureau of Prisons, or treatment, or you're going in one direction or the other, and it's not one of the happiest resting spots.
No.
To put it, I think the analogy works.
Especially if your family wants you to go through those before they take you back, or...
It's family. Family. They're, okay, find an emergency contact.
Good luck.
Yeah, it's, if they even, you have memory loss issues, traumatic brain injury issues. Again, we are at the point where no matter what systems we put in place, there are going to be standardized rules there, and there's always going to be those that don't fit in there. And that is the most visible element. And that is what is showing up in these camps. This is all of the systems that are in place. These are the ones these are the ones left over somehow. I didn't think there were supposed to be any leftovers. I thought, now what do we do with them? Time to get experimental or start taking away civil rights. I'm a big civil libertarian. I ran on the Republican ticket. I self-identify as a conservatarian. It's...
I like that term.
I don't like taking away civil rights. I get very prickly when you start suggesting that.
And it doesn't matter who it is. At the end of the day, whether it's somebody who's in a homeless encampment or somebody who lives in the suburbs, everyone has their civil liberties we need to protect.
Right. It's also why I oppose red flag laws. You want the mentally whatever running around with handguns? No. The way the red flag laws are constructed, you're really playing with some civil rights there. Yeah, and a litany of them. Okay, you need go in a different direction there. And the civil rights taking away thing, that is the part. We talk about a lot of symptoms and a lot of proposed solutions. And a lot of these proposed solutions we've been talking about for about 40, 50 years. On the larger social crime, where does it come from? Okay, once again, I don't care where it comes from. This is where we're at now. Now what?
Let's solve what we can at a base level and then get to the, root of it.
What I see, I like that you said the base level, and it was, again, part of my campaign, back to basics. Because how do you treat an individual who is drug-addled, just down in every way, nothing but literally nothing but the clothes on their back? Where do you start? Well, okay, toothbrush, bar of soap, good night's sleep. Monitored, mostly. But then you start working on the most basic of things.
And again, take a look at the human and the compassionate side of it. How can we get those people to a base level?
Because you're not going to take years, if not decades, worth of damage, situational, psychological, emotional, everything, damage every way. You're not going to turn that around like that. No, it's just not. And you're not going to do it by starting over here when this person can't remember to comb their hair. They can't remember to eat. It's not even a matter of okay, just didn't think about it. When was the last time I ate? I don't know. For whatever, traumatic brain injury, combination of substance abuse issues, whatever else. That is the reality of the population that you're dealing with there. And it is what agitates me to see people take advantage of that population for political purposes, right? Is that, and that's what I think the progressive model does, actually, is that it takes it creates and perpetuates a system that I have to be very careful with my phraseology here.
Yeah.
Very careful with I don't think it's done on purpose, but the cause and effect, the negative, unforeseen consequences.
And I think we live in the social media world where people want to take that photo or that picture with something, and then it becomes part of their campaign where they're advertising it, but they're really not coming up with a solution.
It's more, a picture says 1,000 words, but the experience is never, you can never capture it in a photo. You can never capture it in a photo. You cannot capture the temperature. You cannot capture the smell. You cannot capture the sounds of it. A video camera will not take you through that experience. And because that camera turns off when you're walking through that experience, you get a really good handle of the absolute level of misery there. And I don't see how anyone can look at that and just say it's somebody else's problem, or we just need to keep doing more of what we're doing. That we need to compile more of the same methodology at greater expense to get nowhere.
And we can also look at the financial issues that have come on from this. You know, sometimes we say, are we throwing too much money at something? And it can be a Republican issue in how can we curb government spending. Are we spending too much for homeless encampments or trying to solve the issue? Or is this something we can change how we spend it?
A homeless encampment is a transient population by definition, right? So let's extract a sample character. We'll call him Peanut. Peanut's living in the homeless camp. Peanut doesn't always live there, stays there frequently, but then goes to jail, then goes to treatment, then goes to intensive outpatient. That's where we usually lose track, right? Now that cycle then repeats X number of times over the course of a calendar year. Depending on the number of times Peanut repeats that circle, that's about a $90,000 circle.
Okay.
Per lap. Multiply that by 12.
And multiply that by everyone going through that cycle.
Over and over and over again. At what point do we find other points of intervention or other methods of intervention?
And now we can start to buy into why we need to solve or figure out a better solution for these homeless encampments.
That's why we need to encourage the human component by creating the environment that allows individuals to go in and just try something.
Yes.
Right? The permitting, the monitoring. Yeah, we've all heard stories of, okay, somebody tries to hand out, sets up a barbecue grill, whatever, tries to ladle out soup. Oh, health department shows up, right? That's not fiction.
No.
Yeah, some administrator gets agitated, or that I think that there is tension between private and public charity or service, because one creates an industry of it, the other keeps it as a separate responsibility and maintains that aspect of human compassion, whereas systemics simply cannot and are not designed to do that.
And we talked a little bit about police and the city will send in police and the bulldozers to take over. Is there another role police can take in solving these homeless encampments?
I don't know. I don't think, other than monitoring, being a presence, for, okay, is there a flagrant violation of law other than vagrancy, open drug use? Yeah. Is there an assault going on? Yeah, break it up. Do whatever else. There is a role for city services.
Yes.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm not a moron. Let's keep that interaction as minimal as possible and recognize that there is only so far it can go, and there has to be a point where you just say, okay, we just let it go. Don't let children anywhere near it. That is not a place for families to camp. Okay, well then that is another issue entirely. Now we're going to have to come up with a solution there.
Let's set the boundaries.
Because that's a big problem in a camp. It's a predatory environment, and we can't pretend that it's not. Yeah, and it falls under what would be called radical acceptance, if you're familiar with that.
A little bit.
At all. It's a thing.
Yep.
You know, and some would call it heartless. Others, okay, we have to accept that.
Definitely another topic we could spend a whole nother half hour on here.
This population has existed since the dawn of time. No civilization has solved it.
Nope. Shawn, as we wrap up this show, how can viewers get a hold of you?
You can get a hold of me. I still am a.com. You can reach me at Shawn, S-H-A-W-N, at ShawnHolster.com.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the best way to do that.
And perfect. And that's from basically everything you've done in the past, from past candidates, campaigns to being an activist.
Staying active on the congressional district level, on the BPOU level. That is my email.
Perfect. Well, Shawn, thank you so much for being on the show. As always, it's a pleasure. And
thank you.
This was a great
Always
topic to talk about. I mean, just something we don't talk about enough.
Absolutely not. Or at least we don't talk about it from as many angles as we maybe should.
Yes. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you once again for joining us on Republican Roundtable. I'm your guest host, Jennifer Zielinski, and it was great for you to join us. Thank you.